I've done quite a few sort of contemporary ballet productions with a guy called Will Tuckett, who is an ex-Royal Ballet dancer and now award-winning choreographer. He's fantastic. And out of the blue, I got a call to go and see him when I was living in London. He was doing a play at the Almeida. It was his first play because he'd only ever done pure dance. So this was a play, but it was all choreographed. And he said to me, "Yeah, I couldn't get Gabrielle Yared, so I found your number."
Okay.
So I've got Gabrielle Yared to thank for that relationship, which is now, well, I've known Will now for 10 years or so. And we've done 2 ballets, several smaller chamber pieces at the Royal Opera House. But this new ballet that I'm writing is actually with a choreographer I didn't know. I was put together with her by Birmingham Royal Ballet because they're doing an emerging talent series. Daniela Cardim, she's called. She's an emerging choreographer. And it's great. She's lovely, and it's been really fruitful. It's been a nice process so far. I'm just orchestrating that, and that hopefully will go on at Sadler's Wells in the autumn. It's Carlos Acosta's inaugural show as the new artistic director at Birmingham. So it's got that going for it. So we've got a good chance of it happening. I studied at Goldsmiths undergrad, and then I went to the Royal Academy to do a postgrad composition. Goldsmiths was amazing. It had the Laban Centre at the time, and they were so cool there about cross-pollination. So you write music for the theatre department. I had a concert of my work at Goldsmiths towards the end of my stay there. And there happened to be a producer guy in the audience who lived around the corner, and he was putting together a pitch for a TV series called Sound on Film. He put me together with a documentary maker called Mike Grigsby, a very, very fine documentary maker. We made a film called Pictures on the Piano, totally through composed. It was sort of like a piano concerto, really, but the piano went from cocktail bars to a house in a back streets of Blackpool to a concert hall to looking at real people, and so the piano went through all these social situations. Anyway, I thought, this is great. I did orchestra, Abbey Road, and I thought, wow, this is how it's going to be from now on. Of course,
that was your first gig, yeah.
That was my first TV gig, but of course, I didn't get an orchestra in Abbey Road again for at least 15 years. I don't know, but there's always get the person who did that, so there'll always be those little moments. Then you're back in the field with everyone else. It can help, yeah, I suppose. What I was so pleased about that award was not what I did, but the manner we did it, because we recorded that at Abbey Road too, and it was a kind of retro score. So in my head, I was writing a 60s jazz thing. We recorded it live to tape with the mics, no editing. And I think that went a huge way towards the recognition of that music, was the way it sounded. That's what musicians spend their life learning to do, and that's listening to each other and balancing each other. And you weren't playing into a vacuum with a click and then somebody else was balancing the ensemble.
Well, yeah, I mean, you do a lot of conducting as well. And I suppose when I'm conducting in a studio, I still think fix it in the room first before you do anything else, because people play better. I've done it where I've gone, okay, drop out the click after 4, just drop it, and let's do it without the click.
Yeah, sounds better.
Sounds better. Always.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
Yeah, just drop the click, follow the front desks, sit back on the cellos, and the whole thing goes. Ugh. You can see people feel less stressed as well about it. They're being musicians.
I have a music editor, Lewis Morrison, who's a genius. If I can, I'll always get Lewis. It's on a job-to-job basis. I used to do it all myself, and it's a huge help to have somebody sort of organising everything, basically. Any editing that needs doing, and any techie stuff is amazing. He'll also edit the final mix stems if we need to do that.
Do you orchestrate everything yourself?
If I can, if there's time, but something like, say, Musketeers, which was 10 episodes, 2 weeks an episode, full orchestra. We did half of it in Prague.
City of Prague, James Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, James Fitzpatrick. with his baklava, whatever it is he drinks.
What you make up for in maybe it's cheaper to go to Prague. You see on his makeup for the amount of beer that drunk.
You know, on that gig, I had 2 music editors, an orchestrator, stroke conductor, and Catherine, my agent, score coordinator, and Steve Price, who sadly left us. We'd all go over to Prague and have a great time, you know. Been there quite a few times on other people's gigs as well. I used to conduct for Stephen Warbeck, and we'd do a few things over there. I did an album with Tony Banks from Genesis, his orchestral album out there. It's always good fun to go away.
I'm not sure even if they're recording, are they, at the moment, these places? Oh, I know Sophia is, and they're doing like maximum 12 players, and they're doing 2 meter gaps, which feels a bit odd, really.
We need to create as many sort of different environments we can do this job in, really. Just create opportunities for ourselves, not be stuck in a kind of narrow ambition as I want to do this, I want to do this. We've got to be a little bit more open-minded. This may prompt a whole different kind of genre of music which you make that is largely electronically manipulated because of the way we have to make music. I don't know. I really don't know. I've picked up the skills in various areas, in the theatre and in dance and in screenwriting. So it's just because I'm so old, I'm actually having a great time. I'm writing all this jazz stuff, which is really liberating and lovely. I'm using guys I know to record remotely, small band and big band stuff.
And you're going to just mix in all the individual parts and...
Yeah.
I suppose you won't have phasing issues, but you just have lots of different rooms.
Yeah, people are getting much better at it, and you're getting, really nice dry signals back.
But it's got to be wood. It's just the early reflections and the slap back of someone's lounge in the corner.
Jazz scores. It's few and far between, but when you get them, it's just wonderful. I just did a show at the National called The Visit. Sadly, it came off, obviously, after 2 weeks because of COVID. It was a big show, Tony Kushner show. It was a 5-piece jazz band, but we won't see that again. I'm not an electronic dance music person. I don't do EDM. I mean, I'm very much classical stroke jazz trained guy, so I don't pretend to be anything other than that. I did a show once at the Royal Court, and it was set in Jamaica, and I got offered this job, and I said, look, yeah, great, I'd love to do that, but I'm not a reggae guy. If you want reggae, you need to get somebody who does that. It's like anything. You've got to be in it. You've got to really know that music to play it. That'd be far too on the nail. We don't want that. That's not what we want. And right, fine. So I wrote this score, which was more about the ocean and landscape. And we got to the tech. My music started playing during the tech, and one of the actors said, "What the fuck is this?" And the director, she crept over to me and she just whispered, do you think we could have some reggae? So I ended up, much to my dismay and embarrassment, having to write a sort of cod reggae thing. Long story short, it was on a big new TV show. I was brought on board by a director that I worked with before. It was all brilliant. It turned out he wasn't shooting first. I was working first off with this guy that I didn't know. I wasn't his guy. He clearly didn't want me to do it. I had a miserable time for a good few months while that started. I eventually walked off it. I mean, he made my life a misery. It was awful. It just threw everything back at me with no real direction, no explanation, just needs to be better. I want to hear something I've never heard before on TV. Okay, give it a go. And yeah,
just about like a cowbell.
Insulting, rude and demoralising. He chipped away, and after a while I said, you know what, this is really affecting my health. I walked off it. I mean, I could have stuck it out and got fired and got paid a lot more money, but it was the best thing for me and my family at the time. I got a little payoff for that. I got paid for the work I'd done, essentially. But I was just so miserable, and it was so stressful. You know, as I say, I'm really lucky. That's never. Most of my relationships have been lovely and creative, and I'll go to the nth degree for somebody that I trust and believe in. And yeah, I thought about it. I thought about what would I do differently, and I think I've learned from it that I'd probably get more people involved. Didn't get anyone else involved while I was going through that. Maybe I should have got producers and execs involved. You know, it started out, let's get this right together. So we're a little team. Let's get our thing right before we show it to anyone else. What, in actual fact, what he was doing is getting me in a corner. There's other people on that production that I've worked with since. I gather he was problematic in other ways. So. You know, we all only know our own version of our own careers, and they're all different. For me, it's just sticking around, not doing anything else really but music. You get lucky if you're lucky, and I think you have to just be ready for those opportunities. You've got to give yourself the best chance at being available for all kinds of situations. Make sure you can play something, make sure you can sit in a room and maybe MD something, or put together a choral arrangement, or really literally get your chops in gear in a compositional way, so you're not just writing what you think is film music on a DAW. You're writing music for wherever it might be needed. And I see lots of people come to my studio and I'll chat with them. And the most fruitful ones for me and for them generally are music based. There are some where people just want to know how to get a gig, and they're not interested in talking about the craft or the art or the nuts and bolts of music. You've got to love music. Music has to be the first thing. You have to be a musician and not just want success in an abstract field. So for me, it's all about the music, and wherever that, as I say, wherever music's needed. You do a good job like, for example, I did Luther. I then got offered 4 or 5 psychological thrillers, which I took, obviously, and did them. And you could call that pigeonholing, but I would probably be a safe pair of hands doing something similar. And the only way to get out of that, change it up, is to do something completely different and go and do a jazz comedy score. I just try and keep busy all the time. So if I'm not getting paid, I'll do something for nothing. You know, put on a big band gig, or I'll do a student film, or write music for colleagues who, you know, solo stuff, or you know. I don't know how people do it if they're not musically literate. You know, you hear people sort of bragging about it, like, I don't read music, I just do it by ear. Well, that's incredible, really. I don't know how you do it without the literacy, without being able to look at a score and finding how something's done.
Yeah, your kind of modulation to your new key is going to land, because you know it's going to land because you've used those chords and that harmonic structure in it. Yeah. You know how to get back to E major if you're in A flat major. Arguably, the ear can do that. The theory came afterwards. It was the analysis of Bach that came afterwards. We're getting really nerdy. So that audible skill is there for people, but they've got to go through a process, haven't they?
No, yeah, but the theory is it's the theory of what people have done. You can hear something and go, how was that made? And you can go
exactly.
Look at how it was made, and you can pick it apart and go, oh, I see, and then you can do it for yourself. It's just upsetting when you hear something that should be right and it's not right, and the only reason it's not right is because somebody hasn't bothered to learn the right way. And not there is a right way, but you know when somebody's going for something within a language and it could be done better. I mean, it's like that in any discipline. It's like building a house, or there are shortcuts, there are good ways, there's good practice. I'm not criticising anyone that doesn't read music. I can do my job without all the help I can get from theory and techniques, basically. But that's just the sort of composer I am. I'm not a sort of sonic manipulator. I'm old school. Sometimes you sort of work your way in with a TV thing. You might not know what you're going to do until you actually start getting stuck in with the pictures. I wrote a ballet called Pinocchio, which was a full-length ballet a couple of years ago. So that was a case of finding a harmonic language for that piece. I discovered this sort of palette of the harmonic world, the colours I was going to use, basically, then the themes. And then I did lots of exercises before I started writing it. What can I do with this material? Do lots of sketches on paper.
Oh, you actually write to paper? Proper old school.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it.
Like for Royal Shakespeare Company, is it straight to paper?
Yeah, straight to paper, and they do all the copying. Just put it in display list.
So the first time it's heard is actually in the theatre by the musicians.
Yeah.
That must be incredibly liberating.
Having said that, if there's a dance or something, then they need to rehearse in the room. Then there'd be a rehearsal piano part, and you'd also do them a demo. If there isn't a pianist around, they can play the MP3 in the room. I think MIDI has got a lot to answer for, hasn't it? You have these very seductive sample libraries that sound good doing certain things, so you do those certain things. So you're led by the samples and the technologies leading you. If it is computer based, you may only have one or two players or something. Then obviously you have to write what sounds good out of the box, but I think you have to be careful not just to write what you can play, and B what sounds good on the technology, and that's it.
Paul, thank you so much for that. You're a hero as always. We're going to have a composer's beer.
Yes, I saw
next
that.
week.
Yeah.
Composer's beers, real ale.
You got a lanyard on?
No, it's a well, it is.